Of course she doesn't. Miss Sinerson is on the record as saying that Satanists are breeding babies for ritual murder, a practice she describes to the Catholic Herald as an Auschwitz in peacetime. No, it's not. How dare you compare abortion to Auschwitz? You anti-Semitic nutjob. What? Good evening, good morning, and good day. And thank you so much for once again choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me. I mean, the lighting was cool, but I couldn't see shit.
I mean, we had a new altar turn up literally, like 3 days ago? And that was weird. Like, I know what they've told me and what my friend told me that they told them. Okay, I'm not sure if it's like a new, well, it is a new altar, but part of the inner world, it's a sort of connection of cameras. Was I saying? Yeah, okay, so the main frame runs through the inner world, and we weren't sure really what it was. And this new altar seems to be connected to the mainframe, or like part of the mainframe from the mainframe. It's somehow connected to the mainframe.
So come on then, Clo-Clo. What's the excuse for this bunch of bullshit and lies? Not that any excuse you could possibly give would hold any weight whilst you are currently peddling the conspiratorial beliefs of QAnon, whilst you push debunked, bigoted, anti-LGBTQ, racist rhetoric upon your audience without them even realising.
Okay, soon as I stepped in the club, I hit up the back, show my niggas some love.
It's shocking what you're doing at the moment, and you're getting away with it. Unless, of course, you support Q and the belief that there is a secret cabal of Jews and Muslims eating babies and running the world. I would stay tuned to find out why Chloe is a lot more dangerous than any of us first thought. Let's face it, what's new about Chloe pushing the work of known conspiracy theorists? She's been pushing and advocating for Remy Aquarone for years, a known pedo apologist. And whilst I'd always had my suspicions, I can hand on heart say I had never realised just how bad it really was. But if you've watched any of my recent videos, you know how dangerous these people can be. And Dissociated, recently in this last month, she has shared quotes by Valerie Sinerson and Joan Coleman. And so with her history of also pushing for the likes of FPP and Remy Aquarone, I thought it would be quite useful to know exactly who are these supposed experts. Remy Aquarone enjoys a cushy position as the director of the Pottergate Centre, a consulting service that trains other clinicians in the art of pseudotherapy and sucks thousands of dollars out of the NHS and vulnerable individuals every year. To quickly interject, all sources will be in the doobly-doo at the bottom, but what I'm reading from right now is from the Grey Faction section on Remy Aquarone. Linked to the Pottergate is First Person Plural, a non-profit that continues to propagate the hoax of Illuminati mind control and satanic ritual abuse, whilst linking in their resources page to a malicious doxing list. The Pottergate serves as a private consulting clinic whereby an individual is sent 2 screening forms and is provided a suggestion of diagnosis by the Pottergate. The patient is sent a report outlining the levels of dissociative symptoms and an indication of the likelihood of them having a dissociative disorder. The patient is then encouraged to pay a £600 fee to the Pottergate for a formal psychiatric evaluation and medical diagnosis in order to be taken more seriously and free up more NHS resources only available to those with a formal medical diagnosis. Now, I personally have proof of this within my original docu-series on the Dissociated Team Pinata drama, where I called up the Pottergate myself after having completed their tests and being offered an appointment. And I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Remy would have suggested that I have dissociative identity disorder. Catherine Mayer notes in Abused by Therapy, How Searching for Childhood Trauma Can Damage Adult Lives, 2013, that the Pottergate Centre for Trauma and Dissociation in Norwich uses SCIDD as part of its helpful diagnostic service. They invite anyone wanting to know whether they have a dissociative disorder to contact this centre, which will then send them copies of 2 self-report questionnaires, the DES and a version of the Somatoform Dissociation Questionnaire, SDQ-20, and score them free of charge. These questionnaires, described in Chapter 4, were each designed to measure different dissociative symptoms. The DES inquires about psychological experiences and the SDQ-20 about physical experiences. If scores of either of the returned questionnaires suggest the presence of a dissociative disorder, the inquirer will be invited to attend the centre so that, for a fee, a full assessment can be made using the SIDD. I know of one woman who was invited for this assessment after getting a borderline score on just one of these two very different questionnaires. What would have been the outcome if she had accepted this invitation? The Pottergate Centre told me that roughly 90% of those who accept its offer of an assessment are found to have a dissociative disorder, and most are referred on for treatment. About 60% of these will have DID, 30% DDNOS, and 10% have either depersonalization disorder or dissociative fugue. They report that they have seen a steady growth in the number of assessments they make over the past 7 years. Their use of SIDD thus seems guaranteed to identify many more trauma survivors and to increase significantly the apparent prevalence of the dissociative disorders within the UK. That's Remy's clinic. Let's see some writings from the man himself. I would say that the majority of people with DID that I have known have been involved in some sort of organised abuse. I call it organised abuse rather than ritual abuse, but I'm in no way inferring that satanic ritual abuse doesn't exist, because it clearly does. This idea perhaps contributed to Remy Aquarone's obtrusive involvement in the infamous Operation Midlands case. In 2016, Aquarone signed this letter in opposition to the outcome of the case. This is perhaps amongst the most concerning addition to Remy's history of perpetuating the idea of underground paedophile rings and SRA. Operation Midland was a British police investigation into alleged abuse conducted by the Metropolitan Police in London from November 2014 to March 2016. The operation focused on the investigation of several high-profile British citizens, politicians, military officers and heads of security over alleged claims of historic child sexual abuse and homicide. The 18-month operation failed to find sufficient evidence to support the claims. An inquiry into the police investigation afterwards concluded that the people involved had been falsely accused, leaving them dealing with considerable damage to their lives and reputations. The Metropolitan Police were forced to make apologies to those that had been accused after the inquiry's findings were reported, including compensating those affected. The disastrous outcome of the operation negatively impacted the Met's reputation in handling abuse cases. The culprit behind the false allegations, Carl Beach, was later investigated for perverting the course of justice, found to have been a paedophile himself, and eventually arrested and charged for his actions. In July 2019, he was found guilty and sentenced to 18 years in prison. But, of course, Remy and his buddies like Valerie Sinerson decided that they wanted to defend this disgusting, malicious fantasist and paedophile. Trauma and abuse evoke powerful feelings. As therapists, psychologists and counsellors, we are concerned that the extra anger being aimed at Tom Watson MP, the police and Carl Beach is missing adequate reflection. Tom Watson suggested in Parliament in 2012 that evidence from the paedophile Peter Wrighton's conviction pointed to a powerful paedophile network linked to Parliament and Number 10. This was prior to speaking to Beach, and he was right. National figures such as Jimmy Savile and Cyril Smith MP were unmasked as prolific child abusers. The outcry culminated in the then Home Secretary Theresa May announcing an independent inquiry and the 2014 pressure on police to be believing, now rescinded. The scenarios Carl Beach described in his complex mixture of untreated victim and perpetrator are familiar. People need to understand fantasists and liars. To ignore that subject risks not hearing vulnerable children with dissociative identity disorder from trauma. For example, are often accused of being liars when one's state of mind is amnesiac to what another has said or done. To be wrongly accused is abuse. Yeah, so Carl Beach abused a shitload of people according to... Oh, you idiots. We must provide justice for all, while acknowledging the number of innocent people named is very small compared with the 1 in 65 survivors who gained justice. Signed Valerie Sinerson, Sue Richardson, Catherine Livingston, Melanie Goodwin, Remy Aquarone, Nancy Borrett, Jacqueline Everett, Andrew Baxter, Penny Johnson, Paula Fenn, Dina Senga, Ruth Albra, Kay Luck, Mary Fitzmaurice, Michelle Jewett, Winja Lutz, Sandra Buck, Judy Williams, Lindsay Schofield, Kate Forbes Pitt, Kira Mitchell, Elmer McGrath, Andrea Aldridge, Liz Hall, Mandy Cohill, Renee Cohen, Gail Lascelles, Abby O'Connor, Jane Blackhurst, Kathy Wright, Ruth Leeper, Patricia Bars, Kate Coer, Lorraine Newbold, Paula Biles, Raina Kurtz, oh my god, best friends with fucking... in jail awaiting trial Wilfred Wong, Judith Marlowe, and Heather Bacon. Of course, this lot are pedo apologists who want an actual criminal paedophile out of jail so he can reoffend. What the fuck is wrong with you? In an astonishing apologetic for Beach, the second paragraph actually suggests that one be open to the possibility that Beach's lies and paedophilia might be a result of his being a complex mixture of untreated victim and perpetrator. Instead, findings confirmed that Beach had made seriously false allegations that had wasted police time. Unpublished works of fantasy he had written showed that Beach was a fantasist who delighted in playing out fantasies of being a victim of violent child abuse and enjoyed the attention it would bring him, with little heed for the consequences and the damage it would cause. Despite Aquarone's attempts to disentangle himself in 2013 from the mess of controversy his peers propagate, he remains a prominent figure and a major player in the field. In his own words, "Many of the people who are in long-term psychiatric care have multiple physical problems because the body stores memory better than the brain." It's just like Attack on Titan when Reiner puts his brain into his body and stores his memories and consciousness within his body so that he can survive the explosion of the colossal Titan. What a body stores memories better than... Often one of the things that therapists can find difficult and professionals can find difficult is to work with the more aggressive, angry, hostile part of the client. Some clients will come in and say that they're really frightened of and controlled by this really dark part, nasty. Sometimes they call it the devil part. So who is Joan Coleman? Her publications include Satanic Cult Practices, appearing in a collection of essays edited by Valerie Sinerson, treating survivors of Satanist abuse, Dissociative Disorders, Recognition within Psychiatry, and Reigns, appearing in a collection of essays edited by Valerie Sinerson, Attachment, Trauma and Multiplicity, presenting features and adult victims of Satanist ritual abuse. Her most famous work to date, though, would be The Reigns List, a malicious doxing website where she just did whatever the fuck she wanted. Along with her colleague Valerie Sinerson, Joan Coleman was one of the foundational conspiracy therapists in the United Kingdom, claiming that a vast cabal of multi-generational satanic cults had a stranglehold on the country. Though a 1994 report commissioned by the UK government found no evidence of satanic ritual abuse among reported cases in England and Wales, proponents doubled down, with Joan Coleman contributing an essay to Valerie Sinerson's book and another to the journal Child Abuse Review the same year. One of Coleman's most notable and lasting contributions to the conspiracy theorist Milieu, I don't know how to say that word. Was the Reigns List, compiled by Coleman, client Helen G. and Helen G's alters beginning in 1997. The list contains more than 200 names purporting to document satanic ritual abusers, often providing specific personal information, including home addresses and telephone numbers. Though the list is often described as a directory of satanic paedophiles in the UK, some parts of it read more like a middle school slam book, listing people who have publicly expressed skepticism or disbelief of Coleman's claims in the same document as accused rapists and murderers. Her entry on Dr. Tony Baker states, "His conclusion was that I had invented the entire story and suggested it all to her, causing a patient to believe all the elaborate details she had given us." Another of the names on the list is Jean LaFontaine, the author of the My dog's bursting in. Hello, Dante. You're going to be a pain in trying to stop me filming again. You're a menace. Right. You can come chill, but you have to... The problem with having a dog as intelligent and big as a wolf dog is that doors mean nothing. He can open, close, push, pull. He could do doors anyway. Because you're annoying and genius and I love you. Yes, you're a good boy. I know. You're a good boy. You're going to stop me from filming again, huh? 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 Rah, rah, rah. Oh, I know. Another of the names on the list is, and might I add, unsurprisingly because of how vindictive and psychotic Joan Coleman was, is Jean LaFontaine, the author of the 1994 report previously mentioned. Given the wide distribution of this list, it is not difficult to imagine the effect it had on dissenters. This list was revised in 2018 and is frequently referenced in social media and linked to by FPP. Oh my god, I'm sorry, I don't want to get super angry in this video. Coleman's other often cited work is the essay she wrote in Sinuson's Treating Survivors of Satanist Abuse, titled Satanic Cult Practices. The essay attempts to portray the way of life of intergenerational satanic cultists, stating that the details are a composite of descriptions, largely from her patients. Graphic, highly sensational, and even ghoulish details dominate the writing, including routine human sacrifices, cannibalism, bestiality, necrophilia, and all forms of extreme sexual abuse of children. Who the heck would want to write a book like that? Really? Who would list a book like that as a medical learning resource? Except somebody trying to terrify and traumatize people. In the appendix, she includes a list of dates for around a dozen satanic festivals and celebrations, a list that has since been expanded by other groups to encompass much of the calendar. Gotta watch out for Halloween and Christmas and Valentine's Day, and quite literally like every day on the calendar is somehow a satanic ritual. It's hilarious. Oh, all those druggy hippie druids at Stonehenge off their face on LSD. Oh, what they're really there to do is sacrifice babies. Oh, somebody's put a hex on me. I'm gonna need to put on another skull ring of protection. Oh, I'm protected by my scully rings now. Yeah. I don't just collect skull rings. I actually make these. Yeah. Your boy does pewter smithing on occasion and makes super detailed skull rings. And if you would like to buy a custom skull ring, don't know why I've never advertised these before. I'm so bad at plugging myself and building myself a thing. If anyone ever wants to buy a custom handmade pewter skull ring, let me know. Like on my Instagram, send me a DM on Instagram or something. Prices will start at like 60 quid. I'm not going to go higher than 80 quid. It just like depends on the amount of metal, and like if you want a jaw or no jaw. If you just want the mandible, or if you want one with a jaw as well, and those teeth. Yeah. Buy my merch, and I don't even sell any merch. Now, Valerie Sinison. Oh, Valerie Sinison. Education, MACP Tavistock Clinic, 1983. Qualified to British Psychoanalytic Society, 1999. And she has a doctorate. Yes, she is a doctor, which is why she calls herself Dr. Valerie Sinison at the Clinic of Dissociation. Even though her doctorate is in philosophy. She is a doctor of philosophy. Now, before I continue, right, I have a friend. Let's just imagine I'm going to rename him. My best friend, quite literally my best friend, is a doctor. Now, we're going to call Dr. John Smith. We're going to call him Dr. John Smith. Now, he has a doctorate in geology. Okay? His brother, Dr. Edward Smith, yeah, he actually has a doctorate in medicine, and so do both of their parents. So 3 of these Dr. Smiths are actually medical doctors, but one of them is a doctor of rocks, okay? And don't get me wrong, right? He's a fucking genius. He knows more about rocks than you or I could ever possibly imagine. He also knows more about most stuff than most people, to be fair. He's a really smart guy. But can you imagine if he were to open up any kind of pseudoscientific medical practice or clinic or mental health clinic, or started selling anything to do with physical health or mental health or well-being, and were to call himself Dr. Smith? Do you see how that might be a little bit unethical? Job titles: she has been a consultant child psychotherapist at the Tavistock, consultant psychotherapist at the Anna Freud and Portman Clinics, which is also the Tavistock Clinic. It's the Tavistock and Portman Clinic. Consultant research psychotherapist, psychoanalyst at St George's Hospital Medical School, University of London, Psychiatry of Disability Department, and retains a consultant post at the Clinic for Dissociative Studies. Calling herself a doctor and a consultant when she has no medical background to do so. Fudge. Former titles include Board of Directors for the International Society for the Study of Trauma and Dissociation and Board Elect for the ISSTD and Ritual Abuse Mind Control and Organised Abuse RAMCOA Special Interest Group. And she herself established the Clinic for Dissociative Studies in 1998. Recent books of hers include Ritual Abuse and Mind Control, The Manipulation of Attachment Needs, co-edited by Orit Baduk Epstein in 2018, and The Dilemma of the Perpetrator in Ritual Abuse 2018. Valerie Sinerson was instrumental in spreading the satanic panic in the 1990s in the United Kingdom, and is still a key player today. In 1982, Sinerson treated patient Carol Felstead weekly for 8 months alongside Robert Hale. It was believed that Carol received some sort of repressed memory therapy in the late 80s, and later on she sought the help of Sinerson and Hale. A letter was written from Sinerson to Dr. Francis Raphael, stating that Carol was the first satanic ritual abuse patient she treated. As part of a study in which Sinerson and Hale received £22,000 in grant money to document their patients' experiences regarding satanic ritual abuse. The Department of Health's investigator accused Miss Sinerson of being out of her depth and unable to produce any hard evidence for her beliefs. It's depressing to find someone who has a position at a leading London hospital who is so cut off from what research methodology is and what rational evidence is. The final report on this study is linked in the description. Carol received the diagnosis of being a victim of satanic abuse that had begun in her very early childhood, and notes found in her medical records accuse her parents of being a satanic high priest and priestess. Carol would ultimately commit suicide in June of 2005 after calling her brother and asking to move back home. Whether or not it was suicide, this story... say she died under very, very, very mysterious circumstances. An investigative journalist, Will Storr, working on the case on behalf of The Guardian, managed to interview Valerie on the subject. Signs that a patient has suffered satanically include flinching at green or purple objects, the colours of the high priest and priestess's robes, and if someone shudders when they enter a room, you know it's not ordinary incest. Soon we get to the actual Satanism. Sinerson talks of a popular ritual in which a child is stitched inside the belly of a dying animal before being reborn to Satan. Anybody else watch season 2 of Hannibal? During other celebrations, people eat feces, menstrual blood, semen, urine. There's cannibalism. Some groups of doctors performing abortions. They give the fetus to the mother and she is made to kill the baby. And the cannibalism, that's fetuses, I clarify. Fetuses and bits of body. Raw or cooked? The fetuses are raw. Oh my god. Not even a bit of salt and pepper, I ask. Raw? She didn't even... Oh, she's thick. Raw and handed round like communion. On one major festival, the babies are barbecued. I can still remember one survivor saying how easy it is to pull apart the ribs on a baby, but adults are tougher to eat. She describes large gatherings in woodlands and castles, with huge cloths being laid out. That's normally when there's a sacrifice, she notes. And because the rapes are happening all over the place, there's a small amount of cannon fodder in terms of runaways, drug addicts, prostitutes, and tramps that are used. There's sex with animals, horses, dogs, goats, being hanged upside down in the woods on a tree. Although most of the United Kingdom now views satanic ritual abuse as a moral panic, and the study done by Jean LaFontaine found no evidence of satanic ritual abuse, Sinerson still tries to make claims of its prolific existence. For example, in 2002 the Telegraph wrote of Miss Sinerson, the anti-Satan lobby has also seized opportunistically on isolated crimes. Last September, the torso of a 5-year-old black boy was found in the Thames. Valerie Sinerson, a psychotherapist at St George's Hospital in London, told the press that the case bore all the hallmarks of a ritual murder. Sadly, I do not think that this is a one-off, she said. Of course she doesn't. Miss Sinerson is on the record as saying that Satanists are breeding babies for ritual murder, a practice she describes to the Catholic Herald as an Auschwitz in peacetime. No, it's not. How dare you compare abortion to Auschwitz? You anti-Semitic nutjob. What? Sinerson's a classic one where she tries to say she's not religious, but she often goes out of her way to talk to papers like the Catholic Herald. Optimistically, however, the author concluded, Miss Sinerson's claims are so implausible that they are unlikely to win much of an audience this time. When Miss Sinerson announces that she has clinical evidence of infanticide and cannibalism, she means that her patients have told her stories about them. The implication is that, because the suffering of these people is real, their memories must be accurate. So, in case you didn't know, the conspiracy theorists that made up SRA to profit off of the gullible and mentally unwell are the same group writing material that Q and alt-right fundamentalist Christians use to spread their malicious message of hatred. These people trying to convince you that Christians are oppressed, the right-wingers are oppressed, the Illuminati Council of 300 have been pulling the strings to stop us knowing the truth, that the moon landings were fake, and that the ice wall around the earth is actually growing, not melting, are racist, misogynistic, bigoted monsters and charlatans. And Chloe is in deep. Let us read from one of the most important books written for believers in Q and those that fight the oppression of the Jewish space laser wielding Satanist Arab Jew cabal.
So you don't know what the fuck you're talking about and you're making me mad.